So UFC 217, Dana White says it's going to do north of 1 million pay-per-view buys. That's not too surprising when you actually look at the old GSP numbers, which we'll get to at the end of the fight. Starting at the very, very top, the return of Georges St-Pierre. After fighting Michael Bisping, a lot of trash talk leading up to the fight. We weren't sure what we were going to get out of GSP. It's been years. 4 or 5 years since he's been in that 4 years since he's been in that octagon. He took his time off because he, as he put it, he couldn't handle being a champion. That was part of it. There was a lot of mental pressure. He wanted time away from the sport, and he came back better, which is unbelievable given how far out he's been of the UFC. As for the main event of the main events, he was the last belt to change hands, which was the first time in UFC history that 3 belts changed hands at a UFC card. A very pro-GSP crowd, a very anti-Michael Bisping crowd, and a fight that I thought was everything that makes the UFC extremely unpredictable and extremely fun.
I agree with everything. Doubling down on that. Michael Bisping is hated because he knows how to sell a fight. And here, I even was, while I was watching it, there's no way Michael Bisping is going to tap. He has way, way too much pride in himself, which is cool. I respect it. That's when you go numb and you go to sleep. GSP looked very heavy because obviously we haven't seen him at that weight before. So it was just, at first you're like, whoa, he's huge. And then once the fight proceeded, the biggest moment that I saw personally was when we went into the 3rd round. And I tweeted from the TYT Sports account, this is going to be the deciding factor because everyone on the timeline that was tweeting about UFC 217 was like, oh man, GSP's tired. He looks tired. And it's like, no, is he saving his energy or is he tired? This is probably gonna be the deciding round because if it goes 4 or 5, as Joe Rogan said, you better get a lunchbox because Michael Bisping has conditioning for days, which is true. The 3rd round is obviously when it all changed, when GSP made Michael Bisping go limp and pass out and win the middleweight title. I believe this was the perfect opponent for Georges St-Pierre. The big question will be, who exactly does he fight next? We'll get into that momentarily. But if we could show the 4 men, I believe, Ja'Cory. Well, there's GSP one more time. I love how Michael Bisping, leaving this up for a second, criticized Freddie Roach for being a striking coach. Man, seemed like it worked.
1-0 as a UFC corner, man.
Yeah, seriously. Didn't say much in the corner, didn't really have to. Thank you. The only fighters in UFC history to hold championships in 2 different weight classes, Randy Couture, BJ Penn, Conor McGregor, and GSP. So I was impressed, man. I was impressed with GSP. He took some pretty good shots from Michael Bisping, who has some of the best boxing. Well, it wasn't even from his boxing ability. It was when Michael Bisping was on his back for, I mean, GSP was 3 for 3 in takedowns as a middleweight. That was also really impressive. And Michael Bisping, who has good takedown defense, got taken down 3 times in 3 attempts. But not only that, the cut open from Michael Bisping having good defense on his back and elbowing GSP to the face, profusely bleeding. But it was really impressive. It was cool to see. So we'll get to who GSP fights in a little bit. The other fights that took place, TJ Dillashaw against Cody Garbrandt, a battle of 2 former alpha male teammates. And Garbrandt had Dillashaw. He flattened him. Was Dillashaw saved by the bell? Yeah, absolutely. He was woozy going into the corner, but he recovered really, really, really well. That was one of 2 strikes that put down Cody Garbrandt, and TJ Dillashaw made Cody Garbrandt not realize where exactly he was. Super impressive from TJ Dillashaw. He said afterwards that he wants to fight Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. Should it happen?
100%.
Should it happen immediately?
Well, it's got to see what the medical, if there's any medical suspension.
Oh, of course.
You have to. So like immediately as soon as possible?
Yes.
Yeah, of course. I would love to see that fight. There was a lot of reaction to the TJ Dillashaw, Cody Garbrandt fights aftermath when, look, it's pretty simple. At least I think. There's going to be Garbrandt fans and there's going to be Dillashaw fans. I think Garbrandt is a supremely talented and entertaining fighter to watch fight. But if you're mad at Dillashaw's corner for being disrespectful, you have to be mad at Cody Garbrandt, your boy first, for being equally disrespectful. I was at the Garbrandt versus Dominic Cruz fight, and at that point, there was the rumors that Dominic Cruz was a little bit injured. We didn't know to the extent of how he was injured. Garbrandt decidedly beat Dominic Cruz,
yes,
but it was not an absolute trucking of a victory. He beat him. If he fights him again, he will lose. If Cruz is healthy, because what Garbrandt has proven so far is that he beat a fighter who hadn't lost in 10 years. That's how long Cruz was in the octagon for before he lost. But was also somebody who was literally injecting Botox into his feet for weeks on end up into that fight because he had stress fractures in him. So you have a guy who can't stand who went 5 rounds with you. So that's what you've proven. So you're doing the dancing, doing all the dancing and all the fun little moves.
He did it against Dillashaw too.
That, when you find out how injured Dominic Cruz was, I'm not impressed by that anymore. I thought during the time, this is awesome. This is the type of fighter you want to see in the UFC. You want this guy to keep doing these type of things. And he's doing the same thing to TJ Dillashaw, except his cockiness got the better of him because Dillashaw just exploited Garbrandt in that second round, and Dillashaw is hands down the smarter fighter than Garbrandt. And I think that's going to be Garbrandt's biggest weakness going forward, is now people are going to look at that and go, okay, hold on. So far, your last 2 fights, Dominic Cruz was super injured and you beat him, and then you got too cocky and you wanted to be entertaining and you wanted to do your little dance moves and you didn't want to stick to your game plan that was working and you immediately abandoned it in the second round, and then you got your ass kicked. So whoever fights him next, just do the mental warfare game, man. You know you're a smarter fighter. Almost anybody in that division who gets into the octagon with him is a smarter fighter than Garbrandt.
So what you're saying is it was the perfect time for Cody Garbrandt to face Dominic Cruz.
Yes.
In order to be anointed, winning it, of course.
Well, it wasn't the perfect time. It was just that Cruz can't stay healthy. Like, a healthy Dominic Cruz is one of the 10 greatest fighters in UFC history. Like, his track record of never losing pretty much year after year after year and fighting through injury and coming back and then winning and then coming back and then winning and then taking a time off and then winning, and he's training for his next fight. But like, in general, besides the fact that if you listen to Dominic Cruz's analysis, like, you understand even more so just how brilliant of a tactician he is when calling other fights, and of course he brings that into the octagon. So my point being is Garbrandt had the most brilliant opportunity to stick to his game plan and beat Dillashaw and immediately skyrocket to the top of the entertainment pyramid. Because Garbrandt is the cocky type of guy who can sell fights and dance and do all that, all the stupid shit in the octagon. Like, it's why I defend Tyron Woodley, right? People who want to be entertained, go enjoy Cody Garbrandt. People who want to see how to defend your belt correctly, go watch Tyron Woodley, because they're going to do, I like the guys who are going to do anything in their power to make sure that their belt is defended, because that's what their job is. Now, the problem with Woodley, of course, comes down to the fact that, like, he doesn't sell fights. So not to tangent way too much, I just thought it was ridiculous that people were calling Dillashaw disrespectful and Dillashaw's corner disrespectful, when all Garbrandt did and all his team did was air out all the dirty laundry for month after month.
Do we have that picture, Ja'Cory, of when TJ Dillashaw is in the face of Cody Garbrandt? Because I think I cut that.
No, it's an amazing picture.
So this was the one that a lot of people, along with the corner of TJ Dillashaw, were like, oh, that is so disrespectful. Like, no. This is microcosmic of how they sold the fight. This is TJ Dillashaw and Cody Garbrandt. Again, leave this up for a little bit. 2 former alpha male teammates who hate each other. They do. Now, was there respect once the final decision was made? Yeah, of course. And it's good to see them have that respect. But this is exactly how they sold the fight. These two despise one another. So I'm fine with it. Now, with the corner, whatever. Like, I'm not gonna let the corner getting under the skin of Cody Garbrandt affect the way that I viewed this fight. I'm letting the gladiators in their respective sports settle it. I'm not gonna run with a headline of, you would not believe what TJ Dillashaw's corner said to Cody Garbrandt. Or I just don't give a shit. I don't. TJ Dillashaw was better. He was more disciplined. He was more tactical. There was a moment in the first round where Cody Garbrandt had to finish him. Again, stay by the bell, but he had to finish him. It was all downhill from there. Yes. That was it. That's pretty much it. All right, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson also had a really, really, really impressive win. 3-rounder, but still, yeah.
He fights like this. I love it. Yeah. I'm a big fan of Stephen Wonderboy Thompson.
I've said this before.
He's my favorite fighter in the UFC.
And we can get to some of the pictures of how he beat Jorge Masvidal. But I've said this before. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson plays this mental warfare with you, and these pictures aren't going to show it. But as Jason really well played of a way to mock Stephen Wonderboy Thompson's style, but he reminds me of Sergio Martinez for all the boxing fans out there. That's something Martinez couldn't do.
That was, he reminds me of 57-0 kickboxer.
Yeah,
that's the calves.
Yeah, that's the calf. He reminds me of Sergio Martinez because what Martinez would do is have this mental warfare of his hands literally down here, not so much the elbows, but his hands would be down, and he'd stick his chin out like, "Come on, try and hit me." And once you can't find him because they are both Wonderboy and Martinez when he was in his prime, defensive tacticians, you start getting pissed. And it was shown on the face of Masvidal because he couldn't find Wonderboy, and it was shown with many others that stepped into the ring with Sergio Martinez. Their defense leads to offense.
Yeah.
They're like the Pittsburgh Steelers when they took on the Arizona Cardinals. Their defense turns into offense, and they just exploit your weaknesses. And again, it was a very, very good and convincing win for Wonderboy Thompson, who, by the way, looks, number one, ageless.
Yeah, he's 34.
He's 34, 35, whatever.
Even after a fight, he still looks like he's 24.
He looks amazing. And secondly, as you alluded to, he suffered what we believe and what he believed at the time was a broken right finger, I believe.
Broken thumb.
Broken thumb, excuse me.
He couldn't make a fist with his right hand in the 3rd round, and Masvidal didn't exploit it. What is your corner doing, man? Like, you got to notice that stuff. Like, you got to be aware. Now, it's easier said when you're watching on a broadcast and Joe Rogan goes, "I think he broke his thumb. I think his thumb is broken." Yeah, that makes us sound like we know what we're talking about. But like the cornermen usually are pretty aware of these things. They're keeping an eye on whatever they can do to get to your opponent's weakness. So you would think that they would have noticed that and at least played to that advantage. The other thing too, when you're talking about the defense of Wonderboy, his kickboxing is just so supreme. He's 57-0 as a kickboxer. When he does get the ability to use that, he can just keep his distance. And you have to respect that because he dropped Masvidal with a body kick in the 2nd round. And they gave one of those judges gave a 10-8, which is dumb. What the F is that? That was a 30-27
Yeah, I know you brought that up. I've seen a lot of mixed reviews from a lot of writers who were there.
A 10-8 round is
it seemed like it was split on a 10-8 round.
Dominant round. Like,
so you didn't feel like it was dominant enough?
No, I think judges hand out 10-8s like we hand out candy at the front desk.
We don't hand out candy. It's there for the taking.
It's there for the taking. That's what it is. You want a 10-8? Here, just take a 10-8. There you go. You want a 10-8? Everyone gets a 10-8. That is not how a 10-8 works.
You sound like Oprah.
Yes, you get a car, you get a 10-8. You get a car, you get a candy, you get a Twizzler, you get a 10-8. It's not even great. There's only like a couple Milky Ways left in the candy jar.